Hi, welcome to Unique Parenting. I am B. Moyes, and today I want to talk about when you should contact someone about the developmental delays that your child is, or that you're seeing within your child. So, how do you know when your child is developmentally delayed versus just, something that most kids will kind of actually naturally go through? For the majority of children, they kind of catch up at a certain point, even if they started off a little bit delayed. But for others, especially parents that have special needs kids, that developmental delay never really catch up. And you may not know when to contact someone. Like, when do you say this is an issue versus, oh, they're just developing slowly and eventually they will catch up. This is kind of hard to do as a parent, especially as a parent of a newborn or a young child, because children do develop at their own pace. They really kind of do what they're inherently going to do based on genetics, based on environment. If you walk late, your child may walk late. If you talk late, your child may talk late, especially if your husband walk late or talk late. So, there's a genetic component to it. But for the most part, we really want to talk about what are some obvious concerns. What are some things that, hey, I think it's time to get professional help. I think this is not going to go away, and I do not think that my child will catch up. So I personally have a special needs child, and for us, the first thing that we noticed was the delay in speech. So my rule of thumb is, let's talk about speech and communication delay. Now, speech and communication are two different things. The ability to have language or speak, it doesn't mean that you have the ability to communicate effectively or properly. So we have to think about it not just talking, but actually, can your child relay an information? And of course, there's nonverbal cues to speech as well. So it's not just the verbal part of speech, but also the nonverbal aspect. I would first go to an audiologist. You want to make sure that there isn't anything medically wrong or anything medically necessary going on right now, like such as hearing loss. Even if your child cleared the hearing test when they were young, it doesn't mean that's something you can't develop. So I would definitely get that out of the way, just to make sure there isn't something medically going on. Now, if you've cleared that part and your child is still not picking up language or speaking, then you would go and seek a speech therapist or speech pathologist. They would definitely be your best way of knowing how delayed or behind, or what areas of speech that your child need to work with. But for an average, if your child is talking and going through the developmental milestone like everyone else, you're fine. But for those of the kids who are not, definitely look into a speech pathologist to get an evaluation to see exactly what's going on. Some children have expressive delays, expressive language delay, which may appear as if they're just quiet by nature and not necessarily have a speech issue, but it's really because they can't expressively talk about what they want to expressively say what they need. So there may be an expressive language delay. Some kids don't have a receptive language delay. So expressive is, expressive, saying what you want. I like this, I like that, talkers. Receptive are language skills that I can take in a lot and I can hear a lot. So if you say, go do this, go do that, and the child is just doing it, it's like, oh, okay, this child, they're just quiet by nature. It just probably means that their receptive language skills is high while their expressive language skill is low. So definitely going to a speech therapist to see what's going on. If your child is not making full sentences and talking, again, I don't want to say at this particular age, because really most children, they develop at their own pace. So I would say it's really up to you as a parent to go, it's been, my child is 5 and they're still not doing this, because it may not even be a speech issue. It could be something else, another type of developmental delay. It could be anxiety. It could be some form of ADHD. It could be a processing disorder. It could be autism. It could be anything. So definitely each child will develop at their own pace. But once you start to see some language issues, especially as you know, you can kind of get an understanding for where everyone else is. Like if you're going to mommy and me group and things like that, and you're like, whoa, this child is a chatterbox, and even at home my child is not a chatterbox, because that also can change on environment. A lot of children are very expressively talkative at home, but outside of the home they're not, and that might be more of a quiet reserved kid, but at home they're speaking. But if you're noticing that both within the home environment and outside of the home environment the child is not communicating or saying anything, I would definitely look into that. My second thing is social, emotional, and behavioral delays. So social emotional growth is really the ability for your child to learn from their environment, right? So just kind of knowing, hey, I can't do this, but I can do this. I can talk to this person. I can't talk to this person. Picking up on social cues. When a child is developing, typically they will pick up on those cues without being taught. If you find yourself teaching and having to redirect and constantly saying, man, why don't they get it? Like, why don't they know that they're being too close? Why don't they know that, that child's not interested in them? Why aren't they playing, the game with everyone else? That's a social delay, and that usually is caused by some kind of developmental delay. So definitely look into that, especially if your child has not had like a traumatic experience, which can cause developmental delay. But if they didn't have a traumatic experience, there was no trauma, and your child was apparently developing typically, but all of a sudden things are looking different and they're not developing the same way anymore, look into it. Go to a child psychiatrist or child psychologist to kind of get an assessment to see what's going on and to determine what's the best course of action to take if your child is experiencing those type of delays. Behavioral delays, again, just not doing things behaviorally appropriate to their age. And especially with boys tend to get a bad rap because, boys act a little bit younger anyway. But there comes a point where it's not just boy behavior, right? Boys can sit, boys can be still, boys can listen, boys can follow rules. It's not just boys don't do this. Like if you're having an excessive amount of my child can't do this, or or the stereotypes of girls are quiet, they're reserved, they do this, they do that. If your child is really not engaged in others and they're always to themselves, that may be a sign of some type of developmental delay. So really my two things are social, emotional, and behavior delays, and any type of speech communication delays. I find those to be universal among, any type of atypical brain. So if your child is experiencing, or if you're noticing any of these two things, I would definitely seek additional help. Look into your speech therapist, ask for a referral from your pediatrician. Definitely go to a child psychiatrist, child psychologist to see what's going on, and go from there. Again, thank you for joining me. I am B. Moise, and enjoy your unique parenting journey with your unique learner.